God has plans to prosper you, give you hope and a future too. So let me remind you of what you have the power to do.
You've been on a journey, trying to find your way. Like the sun, you're rising, 'cause today's your day to unlock every gift inside. Let your potential flow. Don't let anybody kill your vibe. Time to bust up and show. Gotta keep on reaching, keep believing. Act like you know you can win. Live your dreams, reach your goals. Be happy, you can make it. Get motivated with Cassandra Mack. We've got wellness, church by phone. You don't even have to leave your home to be inspired. To rise a little higher with Cassandra Mack. They said you'd never make it, but you're still here. Kept on pushing through all your doubts and fears. Never let a hater see you sweat. Remember who you are. When they go low, let them reap what they sow while you go far. Gotta keep on reaching, keep believing. Baby, shine like a star. You can win, live your dreams, reach your goals. Be happy, you can make it. Get motivated with Cassandra Mack. If you got haters, they gon' hate. Keep your head up and just be great. It's your season, your winning season with Cassandra Mack. Rise up, time to get on your grind. Go after your dreams, no time to fall behind. Push till the end and never give in. It's your winning season, get ready to win. Keep moving forward and never look back. It's time to get motivated with Cassandra Mack. You can win, live your dreams, reach your goals. Be happy, you can make it. Get motivated with Cassandra Mack. We've got wellness, church by phone. You don't even have to leave your home to be inspired. To rise a little higher with Cassandra Mack.
Welcome to the Cassandra Mack channel, a channel dedicated to providing biblical wisdom and upliftment to those who want to be part of this community. So you know this up front, comments that are divisive, disrespectful, or deliberately contrary to the teaching shared here will be deleted and the person will be blocked. Understand that I post as I'm led by the Lord. I do not post for anyone's approval or validation. Therefore, I will not be swayed by those who come in bad faith to troll or who come with a disruptive agenda. If you find that this channel doesn't align with you, that's perfectly okay. If you are offended by my rules, my directness, or my delivery, that's okay also. I encourage you to find the YouTube channel that's a better fit, since obviously we're not it. And if you choose to unsubscribe, no need to announce your departure. We are not the airlines. At any time, you can simply choose not to get on board. To everyone else, thank you for being here. Let's continue to grow together. God bless you. Today we're talking about an important topic, especially if you are the type of person who has a tendency to overshare and you have been betrayed a lot in terms of people putting your business out there. You told somebody something in secret and they didn't keep that secret. And we're going to talk about how access comes with boundaries. There are levels of access. Today's video is being brought to you by my Soul Fast Workbook, which is a 40-day guide to fast from negative thinking, intensely negative emotions, negative choices, and even those toxic people. I'll leave the link in the description box so that you can find out more. And if you are doing the Soul Fast, many of us are doing the Soul Fast during this Lenten season. How are you doing on the Soul Fast? Let me know in the comments. So let's jump right in. And I want to start with a question. Have you ever given somebody that you just met, maybe you were on the first date, if it was romantic, or you just met them at a networking function, Have you ever given them your Wi-Fi password? I would imagine that the answer is no. Why not? Because you don't know them well enough to give them that level of access. But sometimes we give people full access to our heart, our insecurity, our deepest dreams, the things that God is still working through us and giving us the grace for those type of battles. And it's not meant for public consumption. It is not meant for public information. And then we feel saddened, betrayed, and disheartened when people are not responsible with our personal information. But then we got to go back and say, were we responsible with our personal information? And so we're going to talk about a concept, and we're going to really dive deep into this concept in my workshop on discernment and boundaries, learning to protect what God gave you to steward, happening on April 18th. This is a Zoom workshop. The link is in the video description box. So we're going to dive deep in the workshop. But today we're just going to touch on the subject. So a lot of times when people think about boundaries, they think about boundaries as a keep outside, like just keep out, stay away from me. I don't like people. And that's not what boundaries are at all. Think of boundaries as a tiered security system, because not everybody gets access to the deepest wells of your life, right? So let's imagine, let's use a metaphor, that your life is like a high-tech security building. Maybe it's a corporate headquarters or a real upscale fancy apartment complex. In this building, you have the lobby. It's open to the public. Anyone can walk in and look at the directory. Maybe they could even sit in the chair for a minute. But at some point, they probably have to either speak to the doorman if it's a doorman building, or they have to go through some sort of security if it is a corporate office. Why? Because there is a boundary. And so they're allowed to come in. There is a level of interaction, but the level of interaction is on a surface level. Then you may have the second floor. And maybe you need a key card in order to get off the elevator there. Or you have to get clearance from the doorman to say, okay, let me call. Who are you coming here to see? Let me call them. Yes, you have permission to go up to the second floor. And this is your social level. And so these would be people who you socialize with, you interact with, you're friendly enough with. But you're still not going to tell them your deepest, darkest things that you got going on in your life. And then there's another level. So let's say there's a third floor. And for the third floor, you need even more clearance. And so not only do you have to tell the security guard the reason why you are there, but you have to be connected to the company in some kind of way if this is a corporate building. So maybe you are coming from another corporate office. Maybe you are one of the managers, and based on who you are and the ID that you show, you're able to go to the third floor. And then finally, there's the penthouse. And for the penthouse, you have to have the highest level of clearance. And so what happens a lot of times in people's lives is that we make the mistake of handing out the penthouse key card to someone who we just met in the lobby. You know nothing about them. But because maybe you're struggling with loneliness, maybe you struggle with people pleasing, we think that if we give them full access immediately, that they will like us more and we can fit in. And then you're sad when they betray you. You're disappointed, you're hurt when you find out that they don't handle what you have told them or showed them with care. But there are certain things that God has given you to steward. We are supposed to steward our emotional lives, and I'm going to give you the scripture in a moment. And it's your responsibility to steward that, not somebody else's. And one of the ways you steward that is you keep certain things to yourself. My grandmother used to always put it this way. My grandmother would say, baby, learn to keep your own counsel. And she used to tell me that from a young girl, like age 9, 10. And I never really got it when I was that young. But as I began to see different situations unfold with my little friend group at that time, where one would get mad at the other, and when they would have their little fallouts, they would tell each other's business and put it on blast. Not that we really had the business at 9 or 10, but still they would, tell the little secrets. Then I started to realize what my grandmother was saying, and it made me reserved in that I never shared my personal business, even with my little friend groups. And even as I got older, there were certain things that I just kept to myself. I kept my own counsel, or I would speak to my grandmother or my mom. And so a lot of times we're handing out key cards to people we met in the lobby. They seem nice enough, but you don't know if you're dealing with a monitoring spirit, a Jezebel spirit. You don't know anything about that person. And sometimes people present themselves as nice, kind people, and there's a difference between nice and kindness. I do have a video on that. When in reality, they're just trying to collect intel on you for their entertainment, or they're just trying to collect intel on you because there's a light within you. You're on a path to purpose. You are moving forward, growing and glowing in the things of God. And this person wasn't sent in your life by God. But if you're not discerning that, you met them on the lobby, you didn't give yourself time to know them by their fruit, you may be handing out passcodes to people who shouldn't have that information. Real connection isn't built on skipping the security checks. In fact, the Bible is very clear about this. The Bible tells us to test the spirit, right? So the world will tell you, give people the benefit of the doubt. But if you are a believer, you are not going by what the world standards are, because you're not conforming to the patterns of this world, right? You're being transformed by the renewing of the mind. And one of the ways you're renewing your mind is by meditating on God's word and inscribing that word in your heart. So 1 John chapter 4, verse 1 says, Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God. For many false prophets have gone out into the world. And a false prophet is not limited to somebody in ministry making false prophecies in a church or ministry setting, or making false prophecies in general. It goes without saying that that is a false prophet. But also a false prophet is simply somebody that's professing something that's not true. So you can have somebody who's saying to you, I come in the spirit of wanting to get to know you. I come in the spirit of wanting to be your friend, when in fact they are a friend of me. You don't know that if you haven't tested the spirit. They can come as if they're coming in good faith, but this can be a person who has a gossiping tongue and who likes to stir up controversy and mayhem, and you caught in the middle of the he say, she say foolery and shenanigans. And so you have to test the spirit. That's very important. And so as you are deciding who gets access to you and at what level, who belongs in the lobby of your life, who gets to come up to the first floor, and who gets to come all the way up to the penthouse, it is built on testing that spirit to see the fruit of trustworthiness, to see if there is any trustworthiness, to see if there's the fruit of loyalty. You don't know that right off rip from the gate. Now here's what Proverbs 4:23 says. And this is one of the clearest scriptures having to do with boundaries. It says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. So it is your responsibility to guard your own heart. It is my responsibility to guard my heart. I can't guard your heart for you. You can't guard my heart for me. And so when you are guarding your heart, you are being intentional, discerning, wise, and selective about who you give access to emotionally, mentally, of who you bring into your home, of who you share your secrets with, of who you just share personal information with. And it's not about having things to hide. You may be a person that, I don't have anything to hide, but it still doesn't mean that people need to know everything about you and everything you got going on is their business. Even Nehemiah, when you read the book of Nehemiah and he's rebuilding the walls, he moves in silence. He moves in silence at first. The scripture says he told no one what was on his heart to do. So he had a goal in his heart, but he knew that there were people who didn't want to see this goal come to pass, who didn't want to see this dream in his heart, this vision in his mind be birthed out into fruition. And so he had to be mindful of that. And so sometimes it's about not even sharing your goals and what you're working on with certain people. And they will see the goal when it's completed. That's when they find out that you did what it is that you set out to do. So level 1 is the lobby, right? And this is the information that you're comfortable sharing with a stranger or a stranger overhearing. And so this is the polite everyday. Good morning. How are you? How was your day? How was your weekend? The things that you may say with a coworker, or you strike up a conversation if you're online at the supermarket, if you are a outgoing person. Maybe you're talking about the weather. Maybe you're talking about a TV show that you watched that was funny, or the fact that you like this type of dog over that type of dog, right? Or you like a particular type of food or cuisine. And so the boundary here is low, but it still exists. It is a boundary of context. You are not telling somebody you just met in the elevator your life story, but you are saying good morning, and you might be making small talk, right? And so this is very, very important. And even Jesus models this. John 2 verse 24 and 25 says, but Jesus would not entrust himself to them, for he knew all people. He did not need any testimony about mankind, for he knew what was in each person. And so if Jesus himself exercised discernment in who he entrusted himself to, shouldn't we be doing the same thing? But a lot of people have been bamboozled to believe that discernment is a bad thing, that discernment is about being a mean, cold-hearted, cruel person. No, it is exercising discernment. It is exercising divine wisdom from God. And so Jesus didn't entrust himself to people, for he knew how people were. He understood human nature. And the Bible tells us a whole lot about human nature. All we have to do is read it. And it is going to guide us in terms of understanding how people move in this world. And so you're keeping the conversation light. You're cordial, but you're not telling everything that's going on with your kids, everything that happened to you in childhood. You're not sharing that information with the barista or with a person that you meet in the elevator. And so when someone tries to force intimacy, right? Intimacy in terms of conversation, or intimacy in terms of trying to get you to reveal something really personal, when they are on the lobby level of your life, right? That's a red flag. They are trying to bypass your security system internally. They are trying to get you to dismiss your own discernment. You're allowed to keep them in the lobby, even if they're nosy. Even if you have the nosiest neighbor who asks you all of your business. You don't have to be rude, but you don't have to divulge your private information. You can have a coworker who asks you every little thing and want to know every little thing you do. You still don't have to divulge that, and we don't have to be rude or annoyed or frustrated about it. I will smile like I am eating a piece of cheesecake and still won't budge on my boundary. You're not getting anything out of me that I don't feel like sharing and telling you. And so we don't have to be rude. We don't have to be loud. We can just be unwavering. And so now you're on level 2. And maybe this is, you're moving from a casual acquaintance or a stranger to a friend. So think about this as the break room, right? The break room. And so usually to get into the break room of a corporate building, someone has usually passed some initial checks, right? Because they are either an employee or they are a guest of an employee if it's a client. There's a reason they're in the break room. They just can't come in the break room, otherwise security would throw them out if they don't have a reason for being there. And so at this level, they have a little bit more access. And so maybe you might talk about something a little bit more deeper than the type of food you like. But it's still not talking about marriage problems, your childhood wounds, childhood trauma. So maybe you might talk about something that annoyed you at the job. Not really deep, not talking about people, but just, boy, this project has really been taking a toll. This project is a lot. I've been working nonstop. And so in this boundary, right, you are both sharing, but you are sharing with wisdom. You're not oversharing. You're not oversharing. You're not sharing vulnerabilities. You might be sharing a frustration, but you are doing it with wisdom. You don't want to share a work frustration at this level and the individual uses it as gossip later, because that's a person who's abusing the access. And if you find that a person abuses access, you have to revoke their key cards, so to speak, and send them back to the lobby of your life. So Proverbs 13:20 says, walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. And so you got to be mindful of who gets level 2 access. So if this is where you're really discerning character. So if you notice that this is the gossiping coworker, right, then you already know this is a fool, right? The Bible will qualify them as a fool. The Proverbs has a whole lot to say about fools. People get insanely offended when I use the term fool, and the Bible talks about fools. Proverbs says a whole lot about fools. And so when you are seeing a person who is acting outside of wisdom, that's what a fool is. They are not acting within biblical wisdom. Then you have to pay attention to that, because that's a character issue. That is an issue of ignorance. And when you are a companion of fools, you're going to suffer harm. And so you got to notice, does this person backstab people? Even if they've never done it to me, if I've seen them do it to one person, then it means that they have the possibility to do it to me. That is enough for me to be able to gauge the kind of personality I'm dealing with, because that displays fruit. So that tells me something about the type of fruit I'm dealing with. And how do we know people according to the Bible? By their fruit. So then there's the vault access. So let's call this the vault, just to give it a name. And this is reserved for your inner circle. This might be your family who actually gets you, your sibling. It may or may not be your family. It depends on, the dynamics of your family. But let's say in a healthy family where there's closeness, this might be a sibling who actually gets you. This might be a best friend who actually gets you. This may be your prayer partner. And this is where you may share things that are close to your heart, your goals, your dreams, but you're still vetting. You're not just doing this off the cuff. You have had enough history with this person to know that there is a degree of trust there, because you've had years of shared secrets. You've had years of being there for one another. You've had years of seeing each other through life's ups and downs to know that this is a trusted source. And so these people have seen you at your worst and didn't leave you, didn't run out on you. You've seen them at their worst and didn't leave and run out on them. These people have kept your secrets as you have kept theirs. So they've earned this access based on their character over time, right? And this is the kind of friendship that the Bible describes in Proverbs 17:17. I call them oak tree friendships. And you are very blessed if you have one person like this in your life. And it says, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity. So these are the people who love you without wanting nothing from you. But it's mutual. You love them without wanting anything from them, meaning it's not performative. It's not performative. It's just pure love. This is that person who shows up for you in adversity. So maybe you were in a financial pinch and you needed $100 and they were like, I got you. They were in a financial pinch. They needed $50. You were like, I got you. They were in the hospital and you went there to visit them and brought them chicken soup, or vice versa. So you've had enough life experience that you have seen their character. Nobody's perfect. There are no perfect people, because you're not perfect and I'm not perfect. But these are the individuals who have shown you that they are a safe place to land. And the thing about this level, the vault, sometimes what we do unwittingly is we give people vault access because they seem nice enough. And you may arm somebody with ammunition to use against you, and you're not really being mindful. This happens a lot because a lot of people confuse familiarity and frequency with closeness. And so you can see somebody every day, right? Think about the coworkers you see every day. You're familiar with their habits. You know that this person drinks coffee every morning. This person goes to the water cooler. This person likes tea. This person orders pizza. You can see their habits at work. And frequency, you're seeing them 5 days a week, right? 5 days a week for X amount of hours a day. So it's a routine, it's regular. But that still doesn't mean that they've proven they can be trusted with your secret, that they can be trusted with the personal things, even though it's frequency. So a lot of people give people who belong in level 2, because they see them all the time, they bring them into the vault. So you got to be mindful of this, because a lot of people confuse frequency with closeness. And we see this a lot in college relationships. You see each other every day. You're going to classes every day, right? And a lot of people have had situations where they are going to college with someone. They think they're BFFs because they see each other all the time, not knowing that this person is insanely envious of them and wants to see their downfall. But because they see him every day, they're going to lunch, they're going to the same classes, they assume that frequency and familiarity, because you're familiar with some of their habits, some of their classes, their schedule, that automatically means trustworthiness. Doesn't. So you have to vet for that. That's your responsibility to test the spirit. And so just be mindful is what I'm getting at. And you want to use your discernment to really begin to know that. And so how do you do that? How do you practice boundaries? How do you put it into practice? How do you begin to really train your powers of discernment? And how do you implement boundaries? How do you steward your emotions, your spiritual resources, your goals, your dreams? And actually, I'm hosting a live Zoom workshop called Discernment and Boundaries 101. Learn to protect what God gave you to steward. It happens on April 18th. And we're going to build a biblical toolkit to help you distinguish between God-led compassion and people-pleasing. So you could be compassionate to someone, but that don't mean you want to go into people-pleasing mode. How to detect when a connection is training you, how to put godly limits without the guilt, without being gaslit. And we're actually also going to be working through a digital workbook together that will give you some guided reflections and leave you with a personal toolkit rooted in scripture. And so we're going to be doing this April 18th at the Discernment and Boundaries workshop. Not only that, you're going to learn how to set godly limits with people who pull on you without allowing yourself to be, as I said, pressured, gaslit, or guilt trip. So these are some of the things that you are going to be learning in this workshop. And you will leave here with some real key tools. We're going to learn how to move from guilt to grace for those that struggle with guilt, to learn how to distinguish between God-led compassion and people-pleasing fueled with guilt. You're going to learn to discern how to detect energy drains and gain a practical scriptural framework to identify when a relationship is shifting from being mutually fruitful to becoming toxically draining or exploitive. You're going to learn how to communicate your boundaries with clarity, courage, and confidence. You're going to develop clear, gracious, and firm language to communicate your God-honoring limits without over-apologizing, without over-explaining, and without minimizing your needs. You're going to learn how to steward your resources without letting guilt and gaslighting drive your decisions. And you're going to create a personal plan to protect your emotional energy, your emotional labor, so that you have the resources necessary to walk in purpose and destiny without burning yourself out for other people. So that's what we're going to be covering in this workshop. The link is in the description box so that you can find out more for those who are interested in taking this live workshop that comes with a workbook. So there you have it. Know that just because you see somebody all the time, it doesn't necessarily mean that they should have up close and personal access to all of your dreams and everything you got going on. So be discerning. And if you want to dive deeper into that, come to the workshop. You can also become a member of the Wellness Club. The Wellness Club is where it's at. So the Wellness Club is one of the tiers of membership where we have a live conference call that takes place the first and third Wednesday of every month. And we focus on mental well-being, self-care through a biblical lens. And it's a therapeutic group. Not only are you speaking with me live on the phone on the Wellness Club calls, but more importantly, you're hearing from other Wellness Club members who are sharing their tips and their strategies as well. And so for those who are interested, you're going to see a link in the video description box to my channel membership. We have 3 amazing tiers of membership. So shout out to the channel supporters. Thank you so much for your support of this channel. Shout out to the Blessed Life Club. That's where you go if you want deeper teaching beyond church by phone and you want to learn how to apply the sermons to your life during the week. You get additional bonus audio called Recap and Run With It. And then the Wellness Club, which most of you asked for, is where you get that live conference call the first and third Wednesday of every month. So make sure you're joining at the correct tier, because a lot of people will join at the channel supporter tier and then ask why can't they access the Wellness Club call because you didn't join at the Wellness Club tier. So you have to make sure you're joining at the tier that gives you the features that you're interested in. So with that being said, have an amazing day. Let's do our best to be kind, but let's take our common sense and our discernment with us. God bless.